On this episode of the podcast, I have with me Kirby Frugia. He is the SVP of Engineering at MURAL. We're going to be talking about his Ship Wow, Ship Now mantra at the company. It's something they've been rolling out. We're going to talk to him about what that actually means. It's going to be centered around delivering better quality code at a very good velocity. I want him to define some of those metrics. I'm not going to say very fast. I'll see what those metrics look like from him. But Kirby, I'm excited to have you on to talk about this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So I guess two things always. One, what does MURAL do? And SVP of Engineering, obviously kind of goes without saying you're in engineering, but what falls in your lap there?
Yeah, so when people first encounter MURAL, a lot of people view us as an online whiteboard. That's people's first impression. But we're really looking to transform visual collaboration using playful methods that make meetings more fun, more engaging, that help people solve problems together, work together, innovate faster, et cetera. And so, yeah, we really help teams, people, organizations really collaborate well. And SVP of Engineering, so what that covers here at MURAL is I'm responsible for our product team, so all the products that we deliver out to our end users, as well as our DevOps teams and our data.
Right. Got plenty to do, I'm sure. So appreciate you being on. Ship Wow, Ship Now. I guess at a top level, let's talk about what that means, and then we'll kind of dive into. Well, actually, before we dive in, let's ask you, what does Ship Wow, Ship Now mean?
Yeah, so at MURAL, we care a lot about quality, and as an engineer, I care a lot about getting value out to our users. Like that's what we're here to do. We're here to deliver things that make people's lives a little better, that help them engage with the work that we do every day. And so it's really a focus on creating delightful experiences, building a high quality product, but doing that with a sense of urgency. A lot of times companies focus on let's ship as fast as we can. And so maybe they get a little sloppy. Maybe they're really focused on MVPs and just get the minimal out there possible to customers. But we really want to focus on delightful experiences. We want to focus on high quality and high standards for the work that we do. But we really want to do that with urgency. So the wow is delightful experiences, high quality product. The now is let's act with urgency. Let's look at every single thing that's stopping an engineer from being able to come in, do their best work, get it delivered out to customers, get it in their hands, get feedback on it, and repeat that process. And so really, it's a mantra we say to ourselves, and it's a way we think about the work that we do every day.
Awesome. I guess the first thing that pops into my head is, now that you guys have this way of thinking, maybe go back and talk about how you got here. What was there previously? What were you guys kind of seeing to need to move to, this philosophy of ship wow, ship now? I love focus on delightful experiences. I think that's a great way of articulating it.
Yeah, so we've been growing really fast. As a company, I joined here in about October of last year. And as you scale out a team, you add a number of different teams. We're up over 20, 25 teams right now, all trying to deliver and work together on that. It's easy sometimes to kind of look within your world or face problems that you think somebody else will help with. So maybe it's hard to get the build, hard to get tests executed, and the build might be slower than you like. And that's a frustration that you're dealing with on a regular basis. But you're just trying to get in and do your work and get things done and focus on your customers and all that. But sometimes you got to take a step back a little bit and go, okay, overall, what does our delivery look like? And how can we make that better as a whole organization for every team and every engineer on the team? And so what I'd say is when you're scaling really fast, sometimes you live with some problems. And so we had lots of engineers doing lots of good work, but facing similar frustrations and similar ways of, things that were getting in their way of delivering software. And so a big part of the bringing this to light is we can do something about this. So every engineer on the team is empowered to go make whatever change they need to make it easier for us to deliver. And we should care about it. It's a thing that we should be thinking about regularly. So there's metrics we have in place to measure how easy it is to get software out. There's things that we look at regularly regarding the quality of the product that we're delivering. And so how I would characterize it is this is a recognition as a team that it's not about Jira tickets. It's not about the day-to-day, this thing or that thing. It's overall, how are we doing this thing that we do in delivery?
Very cool. And you mentioned, I guess, different developers or engineers running into different problems. What's a good use case of maybe what you guys saw before and you decided that's an area that you need to address?
So our build and test times is something that as we've been going along and adding more engineers and building our product and advancing our product, we've been adding a lot of automated tests. We've been kind of advancing that system. And we lost a little bit of sight of how long it took to actually do the build and run our tests. I mean, to be fair, we lost the sight of that organizationally, but every engineer knew how that had crept up, like the time to build and test had crept up. For us, it was over an hour to do that. And you multiply a couple hundred people times, 100, 150 builds that are going on a day in our CI/CD system, that really adds up to something significant. And so we had an engineer that just took it upon themselves to actually do something about it. They're like, this isn't okay. Like, this is something we can make better. Computers can do this work for us. And so he actually just set about to do it himself. He went and was not himself. He worked with a team to do it, but he drove it. He was proactive in it. And he got that time down to 5 minutes. And so if you think of 100, 150 commits a day into our CI system, 100, 150 builds a day, saving 55 minutes every one, you're up to like 2 engineering weeks every day of saved time. And so stuff like that, a focus on the overall time and where our time is being spent sounds simple, but has a profound impact. And it also means engineers aren't waiting now. They're feeling less frustrated. It's easier for them to do their job on a day-to-day basis. And so that adds up, that multiplies out, however you want to say it, to happier developers, easier environment to work in, et cetera.
Absolutely. That's a great use case. And I guess in this case, the developer, observed a problem, brought it to the table. Most times when we want to improve things, somebody sees a problem, brings it up, and then a lot of times they don't want to go tackle it. They just observed a problem and they're like, hey, this is something that needs to be solved. I guess from your standpoint at Mural and organizationally, how do you guys handle that? I mean, are you asking if somebody, finds an issue with process, you're like, hey, that's great. Why don't you go tackle it? Are you guys assigning it to a particular team? How does that responsibility get dealt with?
Yeah, a little bit of all of that. So we definitely have teams that have clear areas of responsibility and things that they're paying attention to. So we have a developer velocity team. That engineer that I just mentioned is on that team, whose really focus is to build tools and to enable developers to do their work easier. But we also have a leadership philosophy in our organization where we want people to speak with intent and just go do rather than ask permission. And so we've rolled that out where it's like, okay, I see something. I don't want people to suffer with it. I want them to just go figure it out, go work with the other team if there's a team needed. We have a model we call internal open source, where if you want to make a change to something another team owns, you just go make a PR and do it and work with that team on it. But in general, there's a lot of autonomy within teams to make changes within their team and to instigate changes outside of their team. So that's really the kind of culture that we're trying to build, where teams are accountable for the stuff they're accountable for. But I want more than that. I want the engineers and everybody in our organization to feel like they can go affect change, especially on the things that are impacting their ability to do their best to work every day.
Interesting. When you're bringing, I guess, a new hire on and you're kind of bringing them into this framework, what's the typical reaction in terms of how you guys are operating?
That's a really interesting question. So there are some people that have worked in that kind of environment before, and they're like, of course, this is how you should do it, right? Like, I want some autonomy and I want to be able to do the things that I know that I can do and have the impact that I know I can have. But there are also people that have, I almost feel kind of bad because they've never experienced that kind of thing before. And they're used to being told what to do, or your job is to take this Jira ticket that somebody assigns to you and write the code and move the ticket over and somebody else will test it. And so for those folks, it can be a little bit of a change. Like, you're not starting in a frame of mind where you know that if something's not working, you can go do something about it. So there's a bit of a cultural change there for some people, and it takes a little time to develop your voice, I would say. And so we have some specific language we like to use. I intend to. That's a language like, I intend to do something. And it's subtle, but it's enough where you start to use that language and you start to realize your own voice in that and your own power to affect change, instead of may I, can I, I'm frustrated with this. Like, why is this the way that it is? It's a shift towards personal responsibility and an ability to speak out loud what you intend to do and go do something about it. So it's tough culturally in some cases because, again, some people may not have experienced it. But once people really get used to it and they're like, oh, I can do this, then like people just go do things that surprise me every single day. We actually, as part of that ship wow ship now, we have a wall of fame where people can nominate each other for things that they saw each other do that they thought was great. And then we recognize that work, and we try to recognize, a few instances of that every week, but we have to be selective because there are so many instances of that people are nominating each other for. And so once people start to really feel like I can do this, then it's a hugely positive impact on the culture.
That's awesome. I guess whenever we talk about velocity and speed, I guess the notion that things are, cutting corners come into play, obviously, and you start worrying about how fast is too fast to keep, in control, making sure, things are progressing. And then obviously the flip side is if you really want to up quality, slow things down potentially, then it's like, well, that's a whole different problem. When you're looking at the notion of, to speed up, you have to cut corners. How do you deal with that? I guess just maybe view of the topic.
Yeah, it's interesting. What I like to think about is what is your actual true velocity? Like how fast are you actually moving versus your perceived velocity and how fast you feel like you're moving. And so one of the things that happens when you cut corners, when you don't test something or when you take on too much debt is you might write your code, get a PR, get it committed, get it shipped. Well, then maybe somebody finds an issue with it, or maybe you didn't think about a corner case and it hits you as an incident in production, or you didn't think about how it's going to scale when millions of users are using it out in the wild. And then that work comes back to you and you have to redo things and you have to revisit things and you have to fix things and it breaks you out of whatever you're trying to work on. And so I like to distinguish between perceived velocity and real velocity. And when you take a step back and look at that, often what you will find is you're not moving as fast as you think you are when you cut corners or when you skip tests or when you don't think about performance in your work. You're moving slower than you realize. Now, I think tech debt is actually it can be a positive principle when applied correctly. So, I mean, it didn't come about as a bad thing. It's just been overly abused and people don't actually pay it off. There are times where, you intentionally and deliberately choose to take on some debt. Maybe you have a big conference and you have to get some code out before the conference to kind of launch it. And so there's no way except to make some intentional choices. But that's a very deliberate act. And it's one where you know that you have to pay it off and you schedule the time to pay it off versus letting it kind of sit there and eat away at all of your future velocity. That's the other thing too. If you cut corners, you are going to pay down the road. But that doesn't mean over engineering. It doesn't mean like spending more time than necessary. And so there's a careful balance. And a lot of times finding that right line is maturity. And it's having been through enough situations and shot yourself in the foot enough times that you realize, hey, sometimes actually engineering this thing well is worth it.
Yeah. And I guess from that, when you guys are going through your sprint planning and you guys are assigning points, maybe I'm assuming you guys are running things Scrum, but whatever methodology you're using, whatever piece of work is being determined to be delivered, you're looking at this true velocity, obviously, not your actual velocity minus technical debt. You got to look at that delta there as well. But how do you sit down during that planning and allocate that delta, knowing obviously you prefer the higher quality, the measure twice, cut once philosophy, but yet you got to still ship, because I'm sure the product management team is anxiously waiting for what they want. And, it's great that you guys want to do it right.
Absolutely. Everything I'm talking about here is a combined product engineering design process. We can't work the way we work in isolation in engineering. And so what I would say is a few things. Number one, if you don't do some of this planning up front, what you end up doing is shipping things that are not what the team expected you to ship, and you're dealing with those kinds of situations. I would also say one of the techniques in Ship While Ship Now is to limit your work in progress. So you should be doing fewer things, you should be doing them well, and you should be sizing kind of your plans for the sprint such that you can actually get things done, because a lot of times you try to push too many and you don't make progress also. And that's an intentional work with the product and engineering teams to figure out how can we break down the work in such a way that we are delivering value regularly. So this doesn't mean it's months between releases. Like we're trying to get our cycle time down so that you start new work and you can ship it that week. Like speed is of the essence in there. So you are getting that out. You're just not wasting as much time. So really it's about wasted time, not over engineering the process.
And I guess in that vein, when you guys are, going through planning, what are some of the metrics, I guess, with the ship wow, ship now philosophy, what are some metrics you guys keep a close eye on?
Yeah, cycle time is the most important one that we focus on. And we define that as the time from the first commit to it being merged and ready for production. We like the door metrics. If you've read the book Accelerate, I love that book. Deployment frequency being another one. We want teams to be able to ship, regularly so that their value, once it's ready, it goes out to production. Obviously, we're paying attention to things like bugs, which ones are getting released to production, how many are we releasing to production, how many are found by customers versus found internally by us. All of those are important. And the other important thing that we like to do is, as I said, I think we have 20, 25 product engineering design teams. We want all of those metrics visible by each of those teams and all of those teams operating to improve those metrics for themselves as well as overall. And so we have dashboards in place. We have tooling in place that allows us to get visibility into those. And for each of those teams to get notifications and know when those metrics aren't where they should be, and then insights into what's stopping them from achieving what they should. And then they work to make it better.
Awesome. I guess if you're looking back at the last maybe year of being at Mural, and you go back and kind of use hindsight and the power that comes with it, is there anything that you think you'd go back and potentially do differently, re-examine, or different philosophy thoughts?
Yeah, I would have pushed for some of this a little bit earlier. So we've been heavily focused on scaling the team, and that everybody's doing good work. Just sometimes you are moving so fast that you don't take that step back and look at the forest, right? And so in hindsight, yeah, I would have probably made some of these metrics more available to teams, probably acted on some of them. Like I mentioned, our build time got up to an hour. Well, we probably should have realized it when it was 20 minutes and 10 minutes, or, half an hour. We should have done something about it then. So in hindsight, I would say it's know what's important, know what metrics matter to your organization, and act on them as soon as they creep in a direction that you're not happy about versus waiting for them to get to a higher spot.
Awesome. I was joking with you. I love just the ship wow, ship now term, but I really think what's interesting underneath the hood is how carefully balanced you guys are taking the approach of quality, using the technical debt as needed, but also making sure product management is supported so that you guys are working in a really close, cohesive of tandem.
100%. Like we talk about a first team and we talk about each level of organizations, product design and engineering, and they are 100% a team. They're in it together. Sometimes, of course, there's healthy tension. There should be healthy tension. Design should be pushing for the best possible user experience. Engineering should be going, well, we could do this like 10 times easier if we did it this way instead. And that should be a conversation and a collaboration between those functions rather than, oh, those engineers or, oh, those designers. Like we really want a tight team environment. We talk about it all the time about how those groups need to collaborate. And we think about each of those teams as if they're a whole company. Like they're responsible for what they build, quality wise, performance wise, user experience wise, everything. They fully own it. So to me, that's a great environment for a product team.
Awesome, man. Kirby, I appreciate you coming on and sharing. I think lots of great details. If somebody wants to reach out to you to talk any further, opinion about what you've said, is LinkedIn a good place to get a hold of you? Any preferred avenues?
Yeah, LinkedIn would be great. The advantage of having a hard to pronounce and hard to spell last name, Frugia, is that there's really only one Kirby Frugia in the world. And I mean that literally, I'm the only one, not that I'm amazing or something. So yeah, it's Kirby Frugia, Frugia. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome, man. We'll put that in the show notes. Again, thanks for being on. I think this is a great conversation. That's it for this episode. We'll be back again with a different guest, different set of topics. And until then, I ask for two things. One, if you found any value in the podcast, share it. That's how it's been growing. The organic growth's been tremendous. So thank you for everyone who does share it. And the others, if you want me to talk about a particular topic, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. Let me know what it is, and I'll do my best to find a guest to talk about that.